Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Pretty good week, eh? It's not been too shabby for Tottenham Hotspur, it really hasn't. The sun is shining, the birds are singing. Things seem to be going Tottenham's way right now. Right now. I always stress right now, because this is Tottenham Hotspur and we never know what's around the corner. But right now, Tottenham Hotspur in 4th place. It is back in their hands. They need merely, what a stupid word to use. They need a point at Norwich, the league's bottom team, on Sunday. And that's if Arsenal can win against Everton. And if they get that point, they are guaranteed Champions League football next season. How did we get to this point after everything that this season has brought? Madness. Absolute madness. Loads and loads and loads to pack into this video, so please bear with me. And if there's something you think, oh, why isn't he talking about this yet? I will get round to it. I've just got so much to try and pack in. And before I start anything, before I want to talk about Tottenham, about what I got up to yesterday, which you might be aware of if you've seen my social media stuff, before any of that, I want to talk about a very quick shout out to Callum Hines. Now, that name might seem familiar to some of you. You might be thinking, I know that name. And the reason is because Callum was the young ball boy that essentially provided an assist for Tottenham in the Champions League. I think it was Olympiacos match. Do you remember Jose Mourinho bigged him up and gave him a shout out at the press conference, and he brought him into lunch with the players. It was lovely. He was such a nice young man. He was a young man kind of thing. Sound like Harry Enfield character. But there was a video that went out of him meeting the players, Harry Kane showing him around. He was the most polite, just lovely example of a young man. And the reason I'm bringing him up is because I've been made aware that after, I'm going to get this exactly right, 8 years, 5 stadiums and 200 matches, Callum's reached his 18th birthday, and that becomes his retirement age as a ball boy. So obviously a young man who played a big part for Tottenham Hotspur. You know, ball boys and stewards, everyone involved around a match. Sometimes kind of what they do goes unnoticed. And it was lovely that in that moment, because of his quick thinking as well, what he was doing got noticed. So just a shout out to Callum, because, you know, his ball boy days are at an end, and hopefully whatever comes next for him is going to be great for him in the future as well, and as impressive as his ball boy skills. So great luck in everything you do, Callum. The reason I do that as well is apparently he watches his videos, which is very, very kind of him. And yeah, it's hopefully he hears that, and good luck for everything that comes next. So it kind of leads me in a weird way into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I was there yesterday. And if you haven't seen my social media stuff, you might be thinking, why was he there yesterday? Why was he there on a Monday when the match was on Sunday? The reason was because I was playing in a match at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is utterly ridiculous to me. In my mind, if you can cast your minds back, some of you might remember that I used to go on my walkabouts around the new stadium when it was being constructed. For a good 2 years I did that throughout the whole process, and maybe for some people that's kind of how they got to know this stupid face, because they saw me doing these videos as I walked around the ground. So to think that 2 years on I would actually be playing a match on that pitch, it's just madness to me. It really is. Just think if I went and told my 8-year-old self that one day I'd be playing on the Tottenham Hotspur pitch would just be enough in itself. And what it was, I didn't just suddenly storm the pitch and have a kick around with my mates. What it actually was, Get Here, the training wear sponsors, they were putting on an event. It's called like a partner event or something, and they invited a few journos to come and join in. So there were four of us that you know of the Spurs beat. There was myself, Rob Guest, who Guesty I do the podcast with, and there was Charlie Kilshare from The Athletic and Dan Kilpatrick from the Evening Standard. Obviously, we know each other very well. We've been around the world, been to all the matches and everything together, so we all get on very well. And then there were a smattering of journalists from a couple of other sports ones, business and lifestyle journalists, and then there were various people who worked for Get Here. So that was the idea of it. And what they did was there were about 40 people in all, and they divided us into two squads, roughly 20 or so in each. And it just sounds so cool. I just kind of say these things in my head and kind of thinking, wow, that actually happened. So one team got managed by Ledley King, and the other team got managed by Gary Mabbott. I was in Ledley's team. We were the home team, which meant we then got whisked off to the home changing room. Yes, the home changing room. The one that Harry Kane, Sonny, Romero, Lloris, et al. use. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, I've seen it on a tour, but to actually use it as a person in that changing room was just... Honestly, you can totally see the fanboy in me coming out on this. This is where the journalistic objectivity goes out the window, because it was so cool. It really was. You get your own kind of bay. This isn't like wooden benches and pegs. This is incredible. Your own bay, which has got like a digital screen above it. All your stuff's all hung up, ready for you. We got given the normal training wear you see them wear with Gettier across it as well. Shorts, socks, a towel. Had to provide our own boots and shin pads, and that was it. And even like the way the bay is so cool for each player. They've got all these little hidden compartments and drawers to keep their stuff in. There's a little shelf, and on that is like a wireless charging pad for their phone or whatever they want to use. And then you go out, and we use them after the showers as well, which are like they've got what's it called? Like a kind of an infrared, like a sensor, essentially a sensor. So when you step inside it, the water comes down. There's no fiddling around with dials or whatever. It literally just comes on and it's the perfect temperature. It's so cool. There's an ice cold recovery bath as well if you fancy that. I didn't. I just wanted to go and shower. Use their very cool, it's like molten brown stuff they use. It's in all the toilets as well in the media cafe. It's very cool. So yeah, there was all of that. So that was just all of that. That was just a kind of feeling like a Premier League player for a bit. And then we actually did all the cool match stuff. So went out on the pitch, did about half an hour of warm-ups with Ledley and his two coaches he had with him, two great guys. They were really good coaches. They kind of worked us through various drills and stretches and stuff. Ledley told us, gave us a team talk before we came out as well. It's about enjoying yourself, let's be honest. That's kind of what it is for people like us mere mortals. And he was going with a 3-5-2 formation because we had more players that stuck their hands up and said they were midfielders and strikers. And he told us quite correctly that he reckoned Gary Mabbott would go for the old-fashioned 4-4-2, which he did. So we went out there, did our warm-up, and then they got us all back in again to then kind of do the proper walkout through the tunnel and then line up on the pitch and the handshakes. It's all the kind of stuff that you'd probably see it and think, oh, that's so cheesy that they're doing that. Do you know what? It was awesome. It was so good. For someone that writes about the Premier League every day of my life, to just kind of experience just for a moment of what that would be like, it was awesome. And the biggest thing I noticed, I say biggest, was the pitch. It's huge. Imagine what you see on the TV screens and even what I see from the press box. Stepping foot on it, it's enormous. Look, I see myself as a half-decent striker at the lowest possible level you can get of football. Honestly, low. I'm not saying I've got anywhere near the ability that would be required to play, professionally or anything like that. I was a Sunday League striker. I still play twice a week, 7-a-side, 5-a-side. But for me, stepping out on that pitch, honestly, it was like the biggest football pitch I've ever encountered in my life or stood on. And it was a really interesting experience, the match itself, because what it was obviously they picked an 11 to start. I was starting up front in the 3-5-2 for Ledley's team. And I don't know how to explain this in the best possible way. So the match was split into 4 quarters. You had starting 11 would play the first quarter. Then they switched out the 10, and then I think someone from the outfield would go in goal. And then it switched like that. So essentially I got the first quarter and the third quarter. They were meant to be about 15 minutes each, but they kind of strayed into the 20-25 minute territory. Proper referee, proper linesman, all the proper way of doing it. I had very specific instructions. Ledley told us as the strikers our job was to come deep for the ball, get it, knock it out wide because we had the extra width, and then spin and get into the box. And do you know what? That's kind of what I did. And I really tried to follow his tactics to the letter of it, because it was a really strange match, like I say, in the terms of there was very mixed ability in terms of players. Some players, like myself and all of the other Spurs journos, we play a bit of football. So, we know hopefully how to play in a system, how to play that sort of stuff. And we know where to run and movement and things like that and keep a shape. Obviously, not everyone did. So we had the kind of strange scenario of I'd be up there up front, I'd knock the ball out to the wing, and the ball wouldn't come back from the wing. Because quite understandably, for other people, and let's be honest, I really should have thought of it myself, if you're on that pitch, you're in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you shoot at goal. Of course you do. You want to go away having said you scored at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So what I'd done in the warm-ups, I deliberately had gone and knocked a couple of shots into the goal, curled one into the I think top and bottom right-hand corner, just so I could say I'd scored at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So maybe for me, I'd maybe told myself before kick-off it wasn't as crucial that I scored in the match. Oh, it really was afterwards. I wish I had. And I'll explain exactly what happened. So, yeah. So my tactic was exactly what Ledley had told me. Get the ball, spin, knock it out to the wings, get back in the box for the cross. Yeah, those crosses didn't really come, which is fine. It's understandable. But I wish I'd listened to Paul Coyte's advice. Paul Coyte is the man you'll hear on the microphone at half-time at Tottenham's Hotspur Stadium and White Hart Lane before that. Wonderful guy. I was speaking to him before. He was like the compere for the day. And he said to me before, just, if you get a chance, just shoot. Just shoot. And do you know what? I really wish I was an absolute greedy so-and-so. I wish I was on the day. That's my one regret. Because I look back and I think there were a few positions, if I just spun and turned with the ball, taken it forward and had a shot, maybe would have had a chance to be able to tell my future grandchildren, your grandfather scored at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I reckon I would have. I reckon there were a couple of... Because the goalkeepers weren't the greatest on the whole either. So you probably just had to get it on target and it might have got in. But it was an incredible experience. It was an absolutely incredible experience. And when I talk about the pitch, how big it is, for a good example, because our midfield kept going missing, because you kind of find it was a bit like schoolyard football. Everyone would gravitate to the ball that kind of wasn't used to a match situation. So I was probably daft in saying I'd play up front like I normally do. I maybe should have come back into a bit like Wayne Rooney in his MLS days, and maybe come back into more of a midfield role to get a bit more of the ball. But there was one moment when we lost the ball, and I think it was their winger or right back. Left back. No. Left back, went right down the wing, and I had to do a box-to-box run to track him and then put in a tackle. Look, I managed to make the tackle. I got a clap and a shout from Ledley King, which is probably the thing that is going to stick in my mind from that match the most. Well, the positive thing that will stick in my mind the most from that match. But my God, my lungs were burst. I felt like I'd just run a marathon. We think of box-to-box runs in Premier League as nothing. But my God, in actual practice, it feels like you're going so far. You can tell I'm kind of excited about just even thinking about it, just reliving it in my head. It was superb. And I'm one of these people, like many of those fans, that, you have these moments where you look at the TV screen and you think, I could do better than that. It's such a humbling experience to be on that pitch. And you suddenly realise, okay, maybe I can't. It really was. And I had to... One a half chance, one a decent chance to kind of have my moment. First one was an actual cross coming to the box from the left. It was about knee height, and I flung myself forward, got a boot out towards it, and I just that far from getting my studs on it. It was a little bit like someone said on Twitter earlier. It was a kind of good example. Gaza in the it was at this Euro semi-final, Euro '96 semi-final. I'm not comparing myself to Gaza before anyone thinks that. It was a similar, if you can imagine it in your head, just to give you a picture of it, how kind of lunging my leg out and not quite getting there. Oh, but then the other chance was my best chance. That was my moment when I was being marked throughout the game by Dan Kilpatrick from the Standard, who's a good player. He's a good player. I don't think he's normally a defender, but he played in defence and played very well. Although what I would say was that in Gary Mabbitt's team, they didn't rotate quite as much. And this is no reflection on Dan, who a few times I saw him wanting to come off. He played the entire game, and he was shattered at the end. He ran his absolute heart off, but he played very well, and he marked me nice and tightly throughout the game. Didn't give me much space, which is why I pretty much was constantly kind of playing it out and trying to shield it and playing it out to the wings. But it was just one occasion where I think it was David Dome, his name was, who's a broadcaster for LBC, used to be at TalkSport, I think, played a perfect corner in. I got away from Dan, leapt like an absolutely knackered salmon, and I got my head to it. I just glanced it across the goal. It is face of goal, and it kind of went about that far past the left-hand post. It was one of those, it was a beautiful goal. But alas, no. When I tell my future grandchildren, I'll tell them about the goal I almost scored at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But fair play to Guesty. Rob Guest, scored a cracker. Lobbed goal. He saw the goalkeeper coming out, lobbed goal. Beautiful. I did have a late moment when I could have been a villain. Because I think it was one of the midfielders, I played it out to the wing back. He did actually knock it inside to a running midfielder who burst up the pitch, and I'm kind of in the box, free, pleading, pass me the ball, kind of thing. And quite understandably, he just waited for the keeper to come out and shot himself, which is absolutely the right thing to do. But there was a moment when that ball was slowly rolling towards the goal where I probably could have slid in and knocked it in myself from about a yard. And you know what? I didn't. I clapped my hands, and just because I knew there was no one near enough to get it from the opposition team. And fair play to him. He was a big Spurs fan. The guy ran off, did a knee slide into the corner, Sonny style. And he absolutely, it was his big dad. So that was not a path I wanted to go down. That would have been horrible of me. But it was fantastic. It was just so good. Charlie Eccleshare forced an own goal from the other side. It was 2-1 on the day, and we came out winners. Like a little kid in assembly. I have got my winner's medal. I had to go up. Gary Mabbott handed them all out at the end. We went back up to the H Club. I got another little H Club experience. They were giving us a bit of food, and Guesty got a very cool football, actually, signed by Mabbott and Gary Mabbott and Ledley. And both, I should massively shout out Gary Mabbott and Ledley King. They're just the nicest guys. I was kind of chatting, whenever I was off the pitch, I was chatting with them quite a lot on the sidelines, probably distracting them from their management stuff. But, I'm a journalist. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to talk. And they were just both great. And they looked after us all so well. And there was actually an incident where a guy looked like he got a bit of a nasty injury. Completely accidental, 50-50 challenge. But I think something might have broken there. We heard a noise. We thought it was his shin pad, but it clearly wasn't. But even fair play to him as he's going off on the stretcher. He's putting his arm out and he shouted out something along the lines of, "At least I'm getting the full Premier League experience." I was like, what a way to think about it at that moment. It was class. It really was. But yeah, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. If ever you get a chance, someone says to you, "Come as my guest, do this," or you get some kind of sponsory opportunity, take it. It's incredible. You can see from my face, I've just spent 18 minutes on a video about Tottenham Hotspur, talking about my own experience playing in a match at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I was buzzing. Even though I lay there in bed last night, replaying that missed chance in my head a million times, and wishing there were a few occasions when I turned down and shot rather than shielding the ball and playing it off to the wings. I will, and this is where there's a part of me that hopes it becomes. I even said to one of the sponsor ladies, the Get Here ladies, I was coming off, like, this is going to be an annual thing, yeah, because I really want to make sure I go back another year and kind of make up for that missed chance. But it was brilliant, and I must admit, maybe we can become, as journalists, become a bit blasé about writing about these players, and maybe taking for granted that even the players that we consider the worst, they're still at an incredible level of what they've got to. If you think about the hundreds of thousands that they've kind of got past to get to this level, it did. It opened my eyes quite nicely to that. We play our games, play out like even Sunday League, and I play my 5-7 side, and you're against players who, let's be honest, were never going to be at that level. You might play against the odd non-league player and stuff like that, but it's a whole other thing. So apologies for spending 19 minutes and 41 seconds talking about me. But it was just so cool. And I wanted to convey the excitement of what that is. And, you guys know that I grew up a Spurs fan. I was born into it. So to be able to say I played on that pitch and to be able to play at the pitch of a stadium that I've also, feels a bit like my baby because of the amount of reporting and videos and everything I did on its construction. It was very cool. It was very, very cool. And I was delighted for Guesty to score his goal because it was a cracker. Even though, as an Everton fan, it didn't actually mean as much to him, I don't think. But he's proud. He's been asking around for the video. I think there's lots of photos and video to come. So I might see if I can kind of chop that together into something for here. But yeah, it's very cool. Right, enough about amateur football. Or does it even qualify as amateur? I don't even know what level you go to. Let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur. So, Burnley match. Oh, do you know what? The thing I just keep thinking about afterwards was that what a difference 12 months makes. And how much Antonio Conte has done for Tottenham Hotspur, particularly. Because I was watching the lap of honour at the end when, full 60,000 or so still stayed in the stadium for it. And I was just looking at it. I was looking at the happiness and people, all the smiles on their face, and it just flashed back to 12 months before. If you remember that game, Aston Villa, 2-1, they lost. I think it was the one where Reguilon sliced that own goal into behind him and into the goal. And the just horrible, toxic atmosphere that there was after that game. They'd lost. Players didn't really know what to do afterwards, whether to still do a lap of honour. They ended up doing this kind of half-hearted thing. Harry Kane looked like he was saying goodbye to everyone. Then the fans were told to go because it wasn't the proper lap of honour. That was literally at the final whistle. But every year it's always been the same. The players will come back out for this, very particular thing. And the tannoy came over. The speaker system said, what was it? Something like, there were, that's it. Essentially, go pretty much. And then there was booing. There was Levy out chants. Some of the fans stayed because they felt shortchanged that they weren't getting this moment that they would normally get. And then it was really awkwardly there. They were like, someone shoved the players out. It almost felt like in their tracksuits, ages later. I don't know, maybe 45 minutes later, just for those handful of fans that were left, and those fans that had already left the stadium, they were all annoyed because, quite understandably, because they'd missed out on that. It was just a mess, and it just showed what a fragmented club it was and how there was no joined up thinking on anything. It was so awkward and uncomfortable. So fast forward 12 months, welcome Antonio Conte, and a totally different atmosphere. It was back to, there was a real family feel. All the families came onto the pitch, walked around. You saw Harry Kane. It wasn't a farewell tour for him. His family came. His little, I think it was his youngest daughter, ran out across the pitch doing lovely stuff. All the players had their families out there as well. And those who didn't have families had their friends out. It felt a bit like the Potch years when everyone was a big, tight-knit family, and that was what it felt like. It was really nice. And he had Fabio Paratici on the side. He was filming it like a fan. I was watching him. And he had Conte smiling up at the screen, watching the compilation video that they were showing as well. It's just such a different kind of feeling. And they gave the awards out. Sonny quite deservedly won all but one of the awards. I'm trying to think, I've got the ones he won. He won one Hotspur Player of the Year, Junior 1 Hotspur Player of the Year, and Official Supporters Club Player of the Year. The only prize he didn't get was Steven Bergwijn won Goal of the Year, because I'm trying to think, it's Official Supporters Club's Goal of the Year. I want to get it the right name for that last scarf's winner against Leicester. It was a wonderful moment. It really was, and yeah. Just the whole vibe was great. Antonio Conte, his name was being sung from the second minute of the match. That's where we're at right now. And it's just lovely to see this kind of completely different type of Tottenham Hotspur right now, and this vibe. And it's off the pitch, it's on the pitch, it's behind the scenes at the club. Everyone's in a good place right now. And that's, that needs to be maintained, because you harness that, that's when good things start to happen. In terms of the match itself, Spurs started well. It was a classic game being played, less than 72 hours after a North London derby. I say classic because that shouldn't happen, and I don't think it ever really does happen. But it felt like, especially as the second half wore on, you could see the exertions of that North London derby. Even with the second half of that being played against 10 men, it's going to knacker you out. It is. And I think we saw that. It was a ridiculous decision by the Premier League broadcasters, whoever. And on top of that as well, there was a stomach bug going around the camp. You know, I knew Kulusevski was ill. And I'd heard other names being thrown in there as well. But it was only kind of when we got there we knew the extent of it. And that was that Kulusevski, Hugo Lloris, Galini and Winks were all, Harry Winks, were all had a stomach bug which had brought fever, vomiting, stomach issues, as you can imagine as well. And huge props to Hugo Lloris for going in goal in a game like that when all of that had been happening in the week for him. And, you know, Brandon Austin was on the bench. There was a reason there were two subs on the bench, goalkeeping subs on the bench. And that was because there was a slight fear that if Lloris felt ropey, you know, Galini might have been in the toilet having some issues as well. So you needed that other goalkeeper to be able to come on who wasn't affected. Just fingers crossed now that doesn't go around the camp and that sticks to, you know, just those guys, or at the worst, if anyone does get it, they got it at the start of this week rather than towards the end, because it had massive flashes of Lasagna Gate. It really did. If anyone that doesn't remember that was in Martin Joel's season when they were so close to getting top four, and they went to West Ham, needed to win, and problems going on with a virus. It was one of those. I think it was joked that it was lasagna, but actually it didn't end up being that. I think it ended up being a virus that went around the camp. And yeah, on the day, it didn't happen for Spurs. And it really, there were shades of that. It felt like it the other day. But thankfully, they got through it. And I asked Conte afterwards about Lloris. I was like, essentially said, how did he play? He made a great save from Maxwell Cornet as well. It was probably the only chance he really had to save. But he did. And he also claimed a fair few crosses in the air. So I said to Conte, I was like, how did he manage to get out there in that state? And he said, Hugo had a fever, but it was strange at this type of situation for Hugo and also Galini, but no chance to miss an important game for Hugo and for Golo. They showed to be very professional, to understand very well the moment, the importance of the moment, and the players for sure, not in 100%, the physical condition at the top, but Hugo is our captain, and I think that never he wanted to miss this game. And that says everything. You know, that says everything about your leader. And I think if you see that, it inspires the rest of the players. Like, well, what can I moan about? I've got to get out there and do this. It was superb. And do you know what? As the players started to get knackered as the game went on, I think you saw the defence come to the fore. I do. I think Davinson Sanchez again came in. You know, one slightly nervy moment. I think he does that. We've spoken about this before. He always has one little moment in every game. But I actually feel like in these two games, he's come in and deputised for Romero really well. And I think he's had overall a good season. Like I say, apart from the couple of times when he's had to kind of come in an unnatural role, whether that's like as the weird playmaker role in the middle of the back three or even playing on the left, I think he did against Mura. Other than that, I think he's done really well. I think he has. It'll get a lot of flack because there's some people that just will never rate him, but I actually think he's done his part this season. He's played his part. Tottenham get fourth place on Sunday. Davinson Sanchez has played his role in that. If you look back over those matches, he really has. But he was very good. I thought Eric Dyer was very good. Oh, Davinson Sanchez, I got the numbers as well. 2 key tackles, 1 interception and 3 clearances. Eric Dyer again marshalled defence like he did against Arsenal. Ben Davies very good as well. Again, he just throws himself at everything. He took a lot of hits as well. There was one bit where he went down for a while because if Ben Davies goes down, he's hurt. He's not one to kind of waste time or play act or anything. He properly was whacked. And you think about the size of him as well compared to the players that Burnley had and were throwing at these long balls that they were chucking into the box. And yeah, fair play. Not even just those three that started. Joe Rodon came off the bench and it was only in the dying moments of the game. Probably, I think he would have had more time, but I think Conte just tried to get him on a bit like the Arsenal game. He could have got more time in the game, But what Joe Rodon did was fantastic. There was this ball in like probably the last 30 seconds, maybe slightly more of the game. Burnley smashed the long ball up towards the box, which was essentially what they're doing. They kept getting these little free kicks near the halfway line and just smashing it, hoofing it up into the box. Joe Rodon came out with his towering, powerful header. I think he beat 2 Burnley players to it. And it was just, I'm going to ask Conte about it in the press conference on Friday. Because for me, it's moments like that that also decide games. When the players who aren't playing, they might be rusty, they might be, out of their rhythm, but they come in, and that was a big moment. It might not have felt like it, and it might go unnoticed completely, but him winning that header was crucial at that moment. And the final whistle blew, however long later. He showed just a brilliant commitment to everything Tottenham, when you could maybe forgive him of just thinking, "Ugh, stuff you," because of the way he's played so few minutes this season. But he didn't, and that shows the professionalism of the guy, I think, as well. And you know what? I've said this enough times. I think he's going to be a really good Premier League defender. I think he will. I just hope it's a loan in the summer. I hope it's a loan to a Premier League club, because I think he's going to come back, and I think Spurs will look at him and think, you know what? Yeah, that's the Joe Rodon we signed. He's gone out there and done very well. So he was fantastic when he came on, just even for those few minutes. I thought Ryan Sessegnon had a very good game again. On another day, could have had a couple of assists, set up, I think, Son and Kane for a couple. Sonny teed him up for a couple that just unfortunately were either saved. I think both were saved. There was one saved, one went wide. I can't remember. But essentially, Sess should have had a couple of assists. He played very well. I love the fact that he's kind of taking charge of that left wing back slot now, which bodes very well for next season. That can be his to have if he can just steer clear of the hamstring problems, of course. But no, it's fantastic. And you just see what it meant to them. I watched some of the tunnel footage after the game. You saw Bentancur was essentially limping. He took a big whack towards the end. He was in a lot of pain. I think it might have been his knee. I don't know. He did have a knee issue before, didn't he? But I watched him in the tunnel footage kind of limping like he'd been shot almost. But he walked down that tunnel and he just had a big grin on his face. Ben Davies came down the tunnel, and there was like an older member of the stadium staff. And Ben Davies just came in, just did this massive fist pump and then a high five this stadium guy. It was really nice. And I tell you what, it was far more harmonious than the tunnel scenes at half time, because that penalty caused some, how do I put this, vocal scenes in the tunnel at half time. Christian Stellini, who's Conte's right-hand man, his assistant head coach, he was having some strong words with the Burnley guys who weren't too happy with it. And there was a Burnley sub. We wondered whether it was Phil Bardsley or not, but he was a proper back and forth. And I know from people who were in the tunnel club that they told me that, because I know there's a switch in the tunnel club. So if you're not aware what the tunnel club is, it's one of those swanky, very luxurious areas that you might have heard me talk about when I spoke about the H Club. And the key feature of it is it's got a ceiling to floor glass wall, essentially, where you can see what's going on in the tunnel. You see the players going off and into the match. You see them coming in. But they do also have a switch which, when they press it, frosts up the glass, so you can't see what happens. And I'm told that happened on Sunday because they were a little bit worried about maybe what might be seen. Burnley were very upset about the penalty. Look, my thoughts on the penalty, I don't really see by the letter of the law what the complaints are about, because Ashley Barnes jumped up like a starfish with his arms in the air. That was the most unnatural positions for his arms possible. The ball hit his arms. Look, I know it wasn't the strongest penalty, the most nailed-on penalty, I guess you could say, but it was a penalty, and I didn't understand it. I think some of their complaints were maybe that Sanchez and him had been grappling before, but that doesn't explain why his arms were in the air like that. I don't think you can really complain about it. And Harry Kane's finish was lovely, really nice, low finish into the bottom left corner, wasn't it? I think the only thing I'd say was that I just felt sorry for Sonny. Sonny didn't get his goals. He had a couple of good chances. It just didn't come. And just worry now that with Salah having 2 games left, whether he might keep his place for the Golden Boot. But we'll see. We'll see what happens against Norwich. You never know. But it was... I've got a quote from Conte on the penalty as well. I think 200% a penalty, not 100%. It was so clear. It was very difficult to understand the complaints. If your arm is in this way and you take the ball, I think it is very, very clear, honestly. And actually, Conte was having a proper back and forth as well with the Burnley bench when it happened, because he was, like me, just like, huh? What are you complaining about? I don't understand it. But yeah, it was interesting watching Conte during the game and after, because I think I've used this one before, this joke, but Conte's content. I think he does. He looks content. He's got a smile on his face. I've said it before, but I could keep noticing it this week. The we's, the uses, the, my clubs. He's using them. There's a connection. It is there. And watching him, it's just like this, watching the compilation video. It was a really funny way of watching it. He was just so happy watching it. And do you know what? I think especially if they can get top 4, his miracle, as he keeps calling it, will have happened. I think he'd be daft to even consider going. I really think he would. And Eric Dyer was asked by BT Sport afterwards about, whether he'd, on behalf of the players, or the players would try to get Conte to stay. And he said, that's above my pay grade. But I can speak for the group of players, and I think the manager would agree as well. The relationship between this group and the manager is something special, and I really want to continue to build that relationship. There's so much room for improvement. With this group and this manager, it would be a shame for it to end now. And it is. That is a view shared by the whole squad. Like I say, even those players who are coming in, who aren't getting regular football, they've shown that they'll do it for Conte. They will, and that's what he inspires in these players, the Conte way. Look, let's be honest. If you don't subscribe to the Conte way, you're not going to put in the standards required, even just levels of fitness needed. And that's why we've seen certain players kind of bombed out and way on loan, because he knew from the off, they're not my kind of players. They're not going to do what I need. Everyone left is doing that, and that's why he struggles to kind of criticise anyone, because he can see they're all doing what he asks of them. Then it's just maybe a question of quality, I guess. And yeah, he's done big things this season. He has. When you look at what he took over to what Tottenham are now, they get that 4th place, and potentially not finish that far off Chelsea. I think Chelsea, I know there's some people dreaming of a 3rd spot. I don't think that's to be dreamt of because of the fixtures Chelsea have. Hopefully, this is one of those moments where you go, ha! But I don't think it will be. It's just incredible what Conte's done. He has. He's transformed the club inside and out. He really has, and he's got us all with smiles on our faces again as well. And for journalists, he's great. We enjoy kind of interviewing him and talking to him. And I'm really looking forward to the pre-season tour in Korea, because we often get more opportunities there to properly sit down and the cameras off and have long chats, like half-hour things. And I know he's done that in the past on pre-season tours with Chelsea. So I can only imagine what kind of really good stuff we're going to get from him and his views on the game. And now we know what it's all about. It's about this meeting that will come, and it's about everyone keeping everyone happy. The Champions League, if Spurs can get it, I'm going to keep saying if until it happens. Hopefully it happens. The money that comes in from the Champions League, you're looking at upwards towards 100 million extra, and that transforms what they can do, but also it transforms the kind of players that Tottenham can attract as well. It doesn't have to necessarily mean they have to spend more. It means that maybe players that are available for decent prices that wouldn't have considered Spurs now do if Tottenham have Champions League football. Daniel Levy put out a chairman's message before the game, which, do you know what? I didn't even realise until I got to the match was out, because Spurs buried it a little bit, as they do. It went up on their website, it went in the programme, but normally Spurs will tweet it out. They will do a chairman's message kind of thing. They didn't. I happened to go on the website and discovered it by chance. That is probably no doubt because they know what the responses would be like, because obviously not everyone is a fan of Daniel Levy. That's very clear. I wasn't the biggest fan of the message when I did read it. It was very dry. It was very safe. It didn't have enough mentions of Conte for me as well. It was quite tentative. He named him once when he said, essentially, they brought him in. Then he named him a second time to acknowledge that we had faith, however, in our squad, and we knew Antonio and his coaching staff would need time to instill their methods and increase fitness levels. He kind of indirectly referred to him later on when he was talking about. He said, "It is testament to the incredible work of our new coaching staff and the application and determination of our players." Essentially talking about the fact that they got into the stage where I think it was written before the Arsenal game. I just thought it was funny. It's like, yes, it's a group effort, but let's be perfectly honest. Conte has been the man that's driven this change. This change this season would not have happened without Conte. It wouldn't have. And I just felt it needed that little bit more in the statement to reflect that. Maybe, Daniel Levy is a businessman. Maybe it is part of some kind of negotiating tactic. I don't know. Whereas I don't want to show that I need him that much. But it's you do. And look, is a statement from Daniel Levy on a website really going to decide Antonio Conte's future? Of course it's not. But it's nice for the guy that's really played the major part in getting things turned around to be acknowledged, I think. There was a reference to the summer transfer window. Don't get yourself too excited because it was, like I say, very dry. But it does say there will be money made available. So here's the quote, rather than me paraphrase. Get ready, because it starts dry, and that's the way it goes. When we reported our June 2021 year-end financial results, we set out our vision for the club and underlined that whilst we had invested significantly in the squad, we needed to improve our recruitment, and the January transfer window showed how important this can be. We shall continue to support investment in both our first and women's teams and our academy. Yeah. It says they're going to invest, so that's something. It needs to be significant. It does. Yeah. Look, I kind of get maybe why he was playing it safe, because if you remember last year's one, he went out there and he told everyone that, we're going to bring in a new head coach who's going to provide free-flowing, attacking and entertaining football. They hired Nuno Espirito Santo. So I kind of get it. I can kind of get why maybe he's not making big promises this year, because they've got to deliver those promises, and they certainly didn't. The Nuno era feels like a lifetime ago. It really does. We were thinking that after the match. We were watching a compilation video, and to be fair, Nuno came up on it. And we're like, whoa. It's almost like, that was this season, wasn't it? It's incredible. It just feels like it feels like a different season, because so much has happened since. There was one word that I just felt was missing from the whole statement, and it's probably the one word that Conte craves the most: ambition. It didn't talk about ambition. They didn't talk about our ambitions. And I looked back, and ambition was in last year's one and things like that. And maybe it's because that is what Conte keeps using. He keeps talking about that word and how the ambition has to kind of align with each other. And I just felt, I don't know. Maybe Daniel Levy has said in the past in supporters' trust meetings that he doesn't care about the criticism. It's not important to him. What's most important is that the club is there for future generations, things like that. But I'd love it if whoever helps him with his statements when they're being written, just try to inspire that little bit, just to make... Look, I know the inspiration is happening on the pitch, and I am splitting hairs. It's not the biggest thing in the world. But I just would love it if he just hired someone that was a bit more of a PR person that just understood the right way to say things. I don't always feel that the advice he gets is the best as well. I don't know whether it comes from that. I don't know. But it was like reading a end of financial year statement rather than an address to the fans. Have a look at it. It's on the Spurs website. It's all there. To be fair, he said towards the end, I firmly believe we are well positioned to go forward into next season. The desire and determination to see success on the pitch is felt by everyone at the club. It does kind of feel like that, that kind of email your boss sends round at the end of the year to kind of tell everyone a great job they're doing, kind of thing. It did feel like that rather than something to galvanise a fan base. But like I say, fan base already galvanised probably by everything that Conte's done. But just the key now is keeping him happy, because he's a winner. He's emotional, but he's a nightmare to manage for Levy and co. I can imagine he is. But they need someone to drive that club on. It's a club that's failed to win silverware in more than 20, in the 20-year reign as well. They've fallen short on becoming the big club that they need to be, and that is where Conte comes in, and hopefully that's what we see happen. And it is about the little details, because I did find it really fascinating. In his pre-match press conference, he was speaking about the fact that the Burnley match was 12 p.m. Why is it 12 p.m. on a Sunday when you've played on Thursday night? It makes no sense. And what he said was really interesting. It's like, a top club has to pay attention to the fixtures. Before the game, you don't think the situation can cause you this type of problems, but afterwards you realise it could affect the result and you are angry. But it's too late then. You need to be angry before. The club has to pay more attention. If you want to win, you have to take care about all the details, because the details move the final result. And that is exactly what a winner knows. That is what someone that's had experience in the biggest clubs in the world, like Juventus, and let's be honest, Chelsea, they are a team that is built to win things. And Inter Milan, what he did with them as well. He knows these little things, that when it's the right time to complain, when it's the right time to kick up a fuss and draw your line in the sand kind of thing. And Tottenham may be just a bit meek and accept these things. And I like that. I like that, because I've said this before. This is not new news to anyone. But, I keep hearing this, that he's very frank when he talks to Daniel Levy. And he's more frank than maybe any other manager has been with Daniel Levy. He will say things that other people, in the conversation might be going, "Ooh, really? He said that?" But they're things that, for a club that has failed to just go to the next level in all these years, look, progress has been made. It has. I know there's people that will just want to say it's complete doom and gloom. Of course it's not. Of course it's not. The team that were there were very much a mid-table team. And since then, they've qualified for Europe. What is it? Is it maybe 14 out of 15 years? Something like that. It's a lot. They're definitely a bigger club, but it's definitely been a tale of missed opportunities to then go even higher. And I understand the stadium was being built in the meantime and everything as well. But, it does. I think if it needs someone like Conte to come in and say some things that are, home truths and frank words, it happens. I'm sure no one's going to have hard feelings over it. I don't get the impression that Daniel Levy is someone that has hard feelings over stuff. He will speak frankly with people about performance and things like that, and he will expect the same to be said, you'd think, of what's happening at the club as well. It's going to be, I'd imagine it'll be a slightly uncomfortable meeting in terms of that sort of stuff. But you know what? I think if top four's there, especially, I think it becomes such an easier decision for everyone just to crack on with what they're doing. I think Harry Kane, I don't think there becomes any questions about Harry Kane's future. Like I think I said before, I wouldn't be stunned if there ends up being a new contract for Harry Kane if Spurs get top four, to reward him. You might think maybe Harry Kane's best thought would be to just see out his contract, but I don't know. I don't get the impression he's that kind of guy. And hopefully, I feel he loves Conte, and I think he'll see where Conte is hopefully going to take them. And with Conte himself, with his record in the Champions League being so bad, maybe this is a chance for him next season, to try and put that right, to put a bit of focus into that as well. Spurs are going to need a much bigger squad. When you look at the amount of academy players they've had to shove on the bench, 4 in most games in the recent weeks, just because they've had 4 or 5 injuries. They need a much bigger squad, especially if they're going to be competing in Champions League as well. You cannot rotate your squad hugely in the Champions League. It's not the Conference League, it's not the Europa League. You can't put another 11 out. You're pretty much going to have to be playing a strong team. So that means that if you are making 3 or 4 changes for the Premier League or for the Champions League, they have to be a similar standard player. And that's where the step up comes. They're already going to have to make it a bigger squad because of the substitution rule next season, where you're going to be able to bring on 5 subs in a game. That naturally means you need a bigger squad. I think that's maybe what I'm most excited about, is that Tottenham are being forced to do the things they need to do this summer. There is no option other than to do it. To to dare is to do and all of that. They really do. They have to, because if they don't, they're going to be stuffed, because even the teams coming up from the Championship are going to have big squads because of that substitution rule. So for Tottenham, who, fingers crossed, are going to be in the Champions League, they're going to need a big, high-quality squad. Money is going to have to be spent. The wage bill is going to have to become bigger. And these are all the things that will keep Conte happy. So it's kind of like a big thing of moving parts that hopefully, altogether, should be exactly what we want to see this summer. Like I said, about that Champions League, Newcastle match was a biggie last night. It really was. I knew, it was going to be a sold-out Newcastle St James's Park. I knew they were putting tifos out, flags, everything. It was going to be a carnival occasion. But I did not think that A, Newcastle would play that well, and B, Arsenal would be that bad. They buckled under that pressure. I saw the Xhaka interview afterwards as well, and it wasn't far wrong. They didn't do what they were meant to do. I could barely think of a shot that tested the Newcastle keeper. I think that says a lot. And I think someone put out an interesting stat earlier. I think it was Charlie Eccleshare. I think maybe it was a retweet of an old tweet, but essentially that Spurs get tagged with this term Spursy, but actually over the years there's been more occasions where Arsenal have been in a dominant position in the table and have actually chucked it away. Of course, Arsenal have won FA Cups. They've won silverware. They absolutely can lord over anyone because of their silverware. But in terms of the league, Arsenal do have that. They've developed in the last, whatever it is, 10 years or so. They have, maybe less. I'm trying to think. It would be kind of Poch time, wouldn't it? So it's less than that. 8 years, maybe. They have, they've been in dominant positions. They've chucked it away. And that was so in evidence. Look at the league table 2 matches ago. Look at the league table now. Thump. And all because of that North London derby win. Really, it's absolutely hammered their morale. They were just awful. They were terrible on Monday night. And Arteta, to be fair, thinking, some of us might have thought he'd come out with some complaints and excuses, afterwards. Didn't at all. Came out and just said, essentially, just not good enough. It really wasn't. And now, we talk about Spurs needing a point at Norwich. So Arsenal still have to beat Everton. And Everton might be in a position where they've still got to play for something. We've got to see how it goes against Palace for them this week in midweek. But I don't think Everton are going to be an easy job for them either, Arsenal. So it's not guaranteed that they're going to win their last home game either. So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. If we can end this with Champions League football to talk about, we'll have come on a hell of a journey. We really will have as well. I'm going to do a quick loan roundup because I haven't been able to do one the last couple of weeks because of the timing of the videos. And someone underneath in the comments, I did notice it, said, it'd be nice if we can have that back. So that's absolutely fine. I've got all of that. I did a little kind of scouting around for all of that. Big name of the week probably is Pape Matar Sarr. He's someone I keep getting asked about. And do you know what? In recent weeks, he's really come to the fore for Metz. He plays every match for them. He was starting, I'd say, about 2/3 of their matches, the rest coming off the bench. But in recent weeks, if you're not aware of what's happening at the bottom of Ligue 1, is Metz have either been bottom or second from bottom for quite a lot of probably the last 10 weeks maybe or more. But in the last couple of weeks, they've won back-to-back games. They beat Lyon, Tanguy Ndombele's Lyon, and they beat Angers at the weekend. Was Angers? I've got it here. I'd written it down. Angers, yeah, it was Angers. They beat them 1-0 at home. And that's really crucial because what's now happened is they've lifted themselves up to 18th spot. And 18th spot in the French league is a playoff spot, which means that you play against a team in the division below to decide who stays in the league. It's all going to go down to the final day. Essentially, I think Metz are on the same amount of points as Lorient, who are just below them, but they've got a better goal difference than them. Metz have got a tough. They're away at PSG last game of the season, so likelihood is they're probably going to win it, but they're going to have to hope that Lorient, who are playing away, I think it's Nantes that they're playing at, going to hope that they don't get any points as well. But on Pape Matar Sarr, he's really come to fore. Last couple of games especially, he's really stood up. And as a 19-year-old in the centre of that midfield, that's a big thing. And I pulled up his WhoScore stats. WhoScore is a really good kind of stat website if you ever kind of want to look at it. So he was the second highest rated player on the whole pitch with a score of 7.58. And their ratings are quite hard. You're not really rarely going to get 9s and 10s. They're quite tough because it's all stat based. So he got 7.58. He had 59 touches of the ball, which is the second highest in the Mets team, and a pass success rate of 85.7% from his 35 passes, and a nice showcase of his all-round ability and what he brings to the team. He had 1 shot, 3 dribbles, 2 key tackles, 4 interceptions, and 3 clearances. So all over the shop, as in a good way, kind of box-to-box stuff. And that's huge. This has been a really crucial few weeks. Whatever happens for Mets, I think that's a big thing for him mentally to come to Tottenham in the summer, having had that experience of having to grab the games by the scruff of the neck when it's a real battle. That's a massive educational experience and also just something to help you grow up, I guess. And not saying he's an immature brat or anything like that. It definitely doesn't seem to be. But in terms of kind of maturing you as a player and a person, that's a big deal. So, we'll see what happens to him. He's trying to get his 33 times he's played for them this season as well. So that's a good season's work under his belt for a 19-year-old as well. Kind of the first season he's been a real regular in that team. Tongi also played. Spoke about Ndombele there, didn't I? They won 3-2 against Nantes Lyon. His stats weren't particularly great. He only lasted 64 minutes, I think it was. Came off after a couple of minutes after a booking. I think he only got a 6.46 in his rating. Wasn't the greatest. I mean, he's played 14 times for Lyon. I think Lyon missed out. I think they've missed out on European football, the way they're playing. They've obviously got this option to sign him for, I think it's about £54 million. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, is it? I don't think he's gone back and been the revelation that they maybe hoped he would. I've got a funny feeling that Tongi is going to be maybe awkwardly walking around that tour in the summer in Korea. I'm hoping we get an interview with him, but whether Spurs hide him away or not, I don't know. But if he plays some matches and plays well, I don't see why they wouldn't let him loose on us. But I don't know if I can see that one happening myself now. I think Leon maybe would like to try and take him on another loan, but I don't know. It's a tough one. Does that benefit Spurs in terms of he's got a long contract, maybe trying to keep his value higher for the following summer? I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough one with Tongi. Whether you just cut your losses and just take what you can get. Lo Celso had 2 90-minute performances for Villarreal. I've written this down. He played Thursday night, 5-1 victory against Rayo Vallecano, and Sunday a 2-1 home defeat to Real Sociedad. Interestingly, he's been playing much more attacking than he has for Spurs. In the first game, in the win, he was on the right wing, essentially. Second game was like a support striker, a number 10, which is kind of mainly the role he's been playing under Unai Emery at Villarreal. But it's they haven't got an option to sign him, but I think they do want to keep him. So I'd be intrigued to see what kind of value Spurs put on him and what kind of value Villarreal put on him, because he starts all their big games for them. So he is a player that they want to keep big time, and I think he enjoys it there as well. And why wouldn't you? Because you're playing and help them get to the Champions League semi-finals. He was superb in the Champions League. So that was big. I mean, Brian Hill, he's had a bit of a funny one in recent weeks because he had a hip injury that was causing him some issues, and his game time's been very hit and miss recently. Some games he's been an unused sub. Some games he's come on for just a minute. He got 63 minutes in midweek. They were playing Espanyol in a 1-1 draw. He played 63 minutes of the 3-0 home defeat against Real Betis on Tuesday night, and in a 1-1 draw with Espanyol, he didn't even come off the bench. It's a funny one, that one. They were singing his name, the fans. They wanted to keep him, but I don't know whether it is just a hip issue. But he hasn't been getting the minutes that he would have been wanting to get in recent weeks. So we'll see what happens in the summer with him. My gut tells me probably another loan if they don't, again, cut their losses, which is a shame. He's 21 years old. He's a talented player. I personally would probably put him out on loan, but maybe it's a summer where they want to get as much money in as possible to have a real transfer war chest. Cameron Carter-Vickers, he will be someone that will be leaving this summer, and Spurs should get, well, I mean, the option that Celtic have is £6 million with potential for 4 million more in add-ons eventually if he meets certain criteria. He's had a brilliant season. What he got is another player that's left to win a title or a trophy. He's won the Scottish Premiership this week. He played both 90 minutes against. I'm going to get this right. 90 minutes in a 1-1 draw against Dundee United, and then 6-0 win against Motherwell. He's been superb for them. Honestly, a lot of people kind of only remember Cameron Carter-Vickers for the performances whenever he's come in and out of the team with no rhythm. Have kind of probably written him off already. He's got Premier League clubs interested in him. He could be a Premier League player. I think my gut says that Celtic will sign him, and I think he'll want to stay at Celtic because he's got a great thing going there. It was quite interesting. His Instagram post after that game, it wasn't a farewell one. It was talking more about the season. It wasn't a thanks for everything. Unless one of those comes when he does head away from the club, when he packs his bags and comes away. I don't know, but I reckon he'd want to stay there. But there are Premier League clubs that are interested in him, and he's not the Cameron Carter-Vickers you knew. He's a guy that probably the Luton fans saw a lot of. He really did help them keep them up in the Championship when he went there. And I think this is the play you're seeing with regular football and a real development this season as well. He's been very good, and it's not just in that; it's also in Europe as well. He played well for them as well. So it's not just people saying, "Oh, it's just Scottish football kind of thing." There's more to it than that. Fair play to him. It's great to see. I've interviewed Cameron a few times over the years, and you could tell he just became a player that just would head off on loan. He's had so many loans, so to kind of make it in his own right. He's still 24 years old. He's young. Don't be shocked if you see him playing in the Premier League in the future. Good luck to him. Jack Clarke hasn't had any games this week, but that's because he'll be preparing for the League One playoff final this weekend on Saturday. Sunderland take on Wycombe. Big game for him. He played his big part in getting them there. Great assist in the last few minutes against Sheffield Wednesday for Patrick Roberts to score. Got a lot of praise for that game as well as performance, Jack Clarke. So another one that maybe people have written off. Fair play to him for kind of pulling it out the bag. I'm trying to think I've got his stats here or not. 19 matches for Sunderland, scoring once, providing 3 assists. And obviously none more important than that one. And hopefully he has a big game at Wembley. Massive match for him. And these are the kind of games that can push you on. He's 21. Who knows what next season brings for him. He could come back and... I don't know whether there's enough space for him to impress Conte enough to get in the squad, but certainly his endeavours, maybe Sunderland go up, he goes back to Sunderland. There's another big season there, or Sunderland buy him. We'll see what happens. But kind of going back to my original comments about how we see players when we don't maybe have that experience ourselves, they're not bad players. The likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jack Clarke are very good players. We just don't know exactly at what level yet because they're still young and developing at their relative ages for their positions. Alfie Whiteman, still at Degerfors. They've finally got back-to-back victories out in the Swedish League. They had a really bad side. I think they'd lost their first 6. But the last 2 games, they've won. They won 2-1 at Helsingborg on Sunday. So Alfie Whiteman's playing every game. There's a recall clause for him. If Spurs did want or need to bring him back, he can come back. Great experience for him. 23 years old he is now. That's your lone roundup. Everyone else has come back. All the likes of Troy Parrott, Kian Atete and all of that have come back now after their exertions. And we see what the future holds for them. So there you go. I think that's it. Hour and 4 minutes we're about to hit. I think I've covered everything I needed to cover. It's all eyes on Sunday now. Press conference on Friday afternoon, I think it's probably going to be. Sunday, the big game at Carrow Road, which I'm just waiting for my accreditation to hopefully come through for. Norwich hopefully will give me the tick that we wait for in the system. And I will be heading there. That's going to be a cracker. And it's going to hopefully be if they come through in the way we want them to be, it should be a really good press conference with Conte afterwards. I always remember Mourinho after the Crystal Palace game when Spurs secured 6th at the end of his only season that he got to finish. He was terrific in that press conference. We got so much out of him. He looked forward to stuff. He gave us a real insight into what was to come. Whether Conte can do that with this meeting that's looming, I don't know. But I hope we get a little bit more, as it's the final time we're going to talk to him for a while. He'll no doubt head off to Italy and do those Italian interviews that aren't always the greatest, because sometimes they may be too honest for their good and maybe says things that maybe don't help matters. I don't know. But hey, I'm not complaining because it's good for me as a journalist. I just don't know whether it's great for Spurs and the fans sometimes when these kind of interviews come out. But yeah, hopefully we get plenty out of him after the game. So yeah, I think that's everything. I'm still buzzing from playing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yes, so you could probably tell. There's probably been bits I've spoken very quickly. I've spoken like that, and there's been a big smile on my face. There's a bit about there's a lot with what's happening at Tottenham as well. It's fun to report and see when things are going well. Hopefully, big old grin will be here as well when I do the next video after the Norwich match, and we can start really looking forward to what's to come. We can start doing more Q&As and stuff like that as well. Might even try and do a live video at some point. I know that's one thing I haven't done yet. I used to always do them on Facebook for work, so it's not something that I don't want to do or anything. So we'll maybe try some of those as well. Do a live Q&A or something like that to really put me on the spot with some questions. But yeah, so I'm going to head off. Oh, I just wanted to say as well, in terms of team news for Norwich, we're probably expecting roughly the same team. Interestingly, there was Conte quotes that I stuck out there a few days back about, I think it was maybe just after the Arsenal game, where Romero, because obviously Conte's kind of ruled him out for the season, but he did admit that Romero, in his mind, was trying to get fit for this Norwich match, trying to put himself in a position to be fit for it. Whether that's wishful thinking, we'll find out in the days ahead. It would be lovely if he could come back, but I think Conte will probably feel quite safe in the knowledge of Davinson Sanchez playing there. Hopefully that's not famous last words, but you know what I mean. He's performed well in the last two games, so why not? And you don't risk maybe creating a worse injury for Romero. But it would be nice maybe for Romero to see out the season as well, because he's had around those injuries and the being in Croatia away. It's been a really impressive first season for him. So it would be nice for him to finish it off in the right way. But we will find out in the next few days or not whether that hip injury is going to allow him to play in that last game or not. So yeah, time to head off. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.